Henderson Island is an uninhabited island in the South Pacific Ocean. It's formerly also known as San Juan Bautista and Elizabeth Island. It's island of 37 square kilometers and is located far from easy reach. It is designated as a World Heritage Site by the United Nations in 1988. Some evidence suggests that a small permanent Polynesian settled on the island before 1400 AD. The reason for them disappeared before the first European came to the island might be because those small number of Polynesian people, they depend many things on the close island, for example, stones for making tools. The Pitcairn Polynesians may in turn have disappeared because the decline of nearby Mangareva. Thus, Henderson was at the end of a chain of small dependent colonies of Mangareva. So they depend something on the close island, and the island depend on the nearby island. As in the chain, one depend on another. Then they disappeared as a chain when the nearby colony of human settlement disappeared. Then there was a Portuguese sailor. His name was Pedro Fernandes de Queiroz. He leading a Spanish expedition was the first European to discover the island 1606, and they named it San Juan Bautista. Captain Henderson of British East India Company, his ship Hercules rediscovered the island 1819, and it's nearly 200 years later. And the British sailor named it Henderson Island, and 1819, a few months later, Captain Henry King in Elizabeth landed on the island to find the King's color already flying. His crew scratched the name of their ship into a tree. Then, 1820, a sperm whale rammed and sank the Nantucket, a whale ship, Access, and the crew arrived at Henderson Island on 20 December in 3 small whaleboats. Their story was later become a book, Moby Dick, a famous book. They found the island only known drinkable water source. The lack of water source. The water source is a brackish spring on the north shore, exposed at half tide. Then they ate fish, birds, eggs, crabs, and pepper grass, a kind of plant. But they had largely exhausted the ready food within a week, and the 3 boats set sail for South America, leaving behind Thomas Chapel, Seth Weeks, and William Wright, who chose to stay on the island Henderson. And The three men survived until their rescue the next year, April. In his account of the ordeal, Chappell reported having seen human skeleton in a cave. Then, 30 years later, 1851, visitors from Pitcairn Island also found a skeleton in a cave and wreckage on the adjacent beach. After a few years, in March 1958, an medical examination determined that the bones was of Caucasian origin, and they were then buried in a shallow grave inside the cave. Then a few years later, an American survey team examined the bones in 1966 and buried them in 5 coffins in the left-hand corner of the cave, tightly jamming a large cross between the ceiling and the rock floor at the entrance. They conclude the remains was of 5 or 6 people, one of whom was between 3 and 5 years of age. It was presumed they were the survivors of a shipwreck who died of dehydration because they didn't find water on the island. Then, years later, in 1991, a final examination in the context of a scientific expedition concluded that the human remains on Henderson Island was prehistoric Polynesians. Henderson Island, along with Oino and Deucia, was formally annexed to British Empire in 1902 by Captain G.F. Jones. In 1957, a 27-year-old American robot Tomachin lived the life of a castaway on the island for approximately 2 months, accompanied by a pet chimpanzee, apparently as a public stunt, until people from Pitcairn rescued him in 2 longboats. In early 80s, American businessman Arthur Smiley Ratcliffe expressed interest in establish a home for himself with an airstrip on the island. The Pitcairn Island Council approved his plan in April 1981, but the British Foreign and Commonwealth Office overruled the decision and vetoed the proposed development after environmentalist group had lobbied to protect the natural ecology and the environment of the island. Henderson Island was listed as a World Heritage Site in 1988. Okay, this is some history and basic information about this small island in the South Pacific Ocean. Thank you.